선생님 살려주세요! 너왜 거기서 나와? 힘내!
생존자 구조에 상당한 어려움이 예상되었습니다.
A father climbs up with his son in the rain. 3 hours ago, they experienced the most unforgettable disaster of their lives. They are now at 500 meters underground. Today we are going to watch the Korean disaster film Sinkhole. It tells the story of a sudden ground collapse in a downtown area. A whole building falls into a hole in the ground and the story happens. Park is the head of a company. He finally saved enough money to buy a house of his own in his middle age. On the day he moved in, the neighbors were very polite to him. They congratulate the Park family on their new home. Sam put the glass ball on the floor of the house. The glass ball rolled on its own. Park thinks this means the building is leaning badly. Park looked up the apartment online at work. He saw that other residents had noticed the problem. He also said that it was a jerry-built project. During the night, it rained heavily in Seoul. The wall on the outside of the apartment was severely cracked. There was also a slight sinking. This caused the glass of the front door to be crushed. Ian, who lived here the next day, was the first to notice the broken glass. The glass shattered instantly when he touched it. Park found new cracks in the parking lot as he was getting ready for work. That day, Park's colleague Kim and his group came to visit the house. In the evening, Kim was so drunk that he stayed at Park's house. The next morning, Mimi went out to buy something but found that she forgot her wallet. So he asked Sam to go back to get his wallet. Kim wakes up with a hangover at Park's house and suddenly remembers that he has a wedding to attend today. He rushed downstairs and got into a cab. Suddenly, the building shakes violently. The ground also appeared cracks. Then the building began to cave in. Park, who was awakened by the strong shaking, saw the scene and was terrified. Ian, who was on the roof of the building, asked the old man across the street to call the police. As soon as he said that, the building collapsed and plunged into the ground. The cab Kim was riding and also fell down with the opening of the crack in the ground. Soon the whole building disappeared from the ground. After the building collapsed, they went several hundred meters underground. A sinkhole suddenly appeared on the ground. The cab Kim was riding and also fell from the first floor and got stuck on the roof of the building. Then it fell from the roof to the 5th floor where Park was. That's when Park found Kim in the cab. He tried to save Kim with all his might, but the car door could not be opened no matter how hard. In the nick of time, the cab's electric window suddenly opened itself. He was pulling Kim out of the car through the window. At that moment, he suddenly heard a cry for help from the bedroom. Park went to the bedroom to look for helpers. They picked up the fallen cabinet and saw his female colleague, Anju, who had drunkenly stayed at his house last night. At that moment, the rescue team arrived at the scene of the accident with a helicopter, but there were explosions one after another on the ground. We can look down from the air and see that the original apartment has disappeared. All that remains is a huge, bottomless sinkhole of horror. Yoon struggled out of the buried sand and dirt, but he couldn't stand up and fell backwards to the 5th floor. Luckily, he happened to be sitting on Park's rocking chair. At that moment, Park thought his son Sam was in the room, but Yoon was in the hallway and watched Sam go down the stairs. This made Park think that Sam was not involved in the disaster. But Yoon also has a son who worries people. According to the current situation, there are only Park, Yoon, Kim and Anju are the only 4 people who have fallen into the sinkhole. The rescue team wanted to carry out an emergency rescue, so they sent some of the team members down to the bottom of the sinkhole with ropes. But the soil around the sinkhole was loose, caused a serious collapse, so they had to suspend the operation to find a better rescue plan. Anju tried to find a signal from the top floor, but they are now 500 meters underground and surrounded by soil and construction debris. There was no way that cell phones could pick up a signal here. But that's when they heard a voice from the utility room. He was Tai, who was hiding in Park's house smoking for fear of being discovered. Tai probably watched a lot of videos about survival in the wilderness, so he knows very well that after a disaster, people should first go to collect food, water and medicine. Now they have one more member in their team. The cause of the disaster was the sinking of the foundation. In addition to the heavy rainfall in Seoul during this period, many uncertainties led to the sinkhole disaster. The accident was a natural disaster. The film repeatedly emphasizes Park's favorite rocking chair. This rocking chair is his dream and his state of mind. It is also the embodiment of a man's vanity and satisfaction. But it is now destroyed, along with the house that Park had saved so much money to buy. Yoon chopped down the rocking chair and burned it for firewood. Park only smiled when he saw this act, because he knew that in front of life and family, The things he loved were not worth as much as everyone's life. The rescue team was about to fly a drone down to the sinkhole to check the situation, but the drone lost its signal when it was halfway down and fell out of sight. Everyone is very happy to see the rescue team sent over the drone. This said that tomorrow the people above the sinkhole is preparing to rescue them. But at that very moment, the apartment building started a new round of sinking movement. Finally, the apartment building fell to the bottom of the sinkhole. But because of the tilt of the building, Kim, who was at the end of the building, was in danger of falling. At that moment, Anju suddenly burst out with amazing strength. She jumped up high in place and dodged a boulder. Then she threw a cable towards Kim. Everyone worked together and pulled the cable to pull Kim up from the bottom of the building. Love was born at this critical moment. At the same time, the drone suddenly got a signal and flew back to the ground. People on the ground watched the drone capture images of the sinkhole below. But a mother did not see her child on the second floor. She was in despair. Then the rescue team leader brought bad news to Park's wife. Mimi, the phone her son Sam was holding at the time was last located in an apartment. That means Park's son is also in the sinkhole, but the living person at the bottom of the sinkhole doesn't know anything about Sam yet. The rescue team is thinking about the survivors in the sinkhole. They are going to cut the concrete foundation under the adjacent apartment building. This will allow the building to tilt in the opposite direction of the sinkhole. Otherwise, the crater caused by the sinkhole would have caused the building next to it to collapse. But this building is full of people's hard-earned houses. How can it be destroyed just like that? Finally, an old man came out to say something fair. If we continue to argue, we will miss the golden rescue time for the survivors. Finally, with the consent of the owners, the work of cutting the foundation of the building next door finally began. The rescue team also put some supplies to the survivors in the sinkhole, such as oxygen tanks and a satellite phone. Now Park finally knew that his son Sam was trapped in the sinkhole. The rescue team hopes he won't do anything rash. But what father can remain silent when he hears this news? Sam was waiting for help in his car on the first floor. Park was about to go down the elevator shaft to the first floor. He tied a safety rope around his body, and with the help of his friends, he climbed the rope to the bottom of the elevator room. But just as he was about to open the elevator door and enter the first floor, sinkhole suddenly shake. It turned out that the rescue team did not have time to cut the foundation of the next building intact. The building next door had unfortunately collapsed. It collapsed and blocked the area directly above the survivors below. It was very dangerous. With the violent shaking of the building, a water storage tank also fell in the process. The elevator shaft was also close to a major crisis. All kinds of chain reactions happened immediately. There were many heavy objects falling fast from above and caught Park's safety rope. Park had to cut the safety rope in a hurry. He made it safely to the first floor where Sam was. At that moment, Sam saw the boy in room 200 and looking at him with a candle from his car. So Sam opened the car door and followed his lead into the pipe. The next second, the car Sam had just been in was crushed by a boulder. Park soon rescued Sam from the pipe. Then they turned their heads and found the grandmother in room 201 with a candle watching them. Father and son followed the light of the fire and climbed up to the second floor, but the scene in front of them made them sad and scared. It turned out that the boy on the second floor had passed away earlier. The grandmother's son was also seriously injured in the subsidence accident. By now, the groundwater had spread to the second floor. Park hoped that the grandmother could go with them, but she had already lost her son. She has Alzheimer's disease. How could she live alone in the future? In the end, she chose to stay on the second floor alone. She gave Park a pair of shoes and a bundle of rope. Grandma grabbed a strand of hair from the boy's head and wrapped it in a towel for Park to take with him. She gave her blessing to the father and son and hoped they would live. Park carried Sam to the outside of the third floor. They need to climb up the pipe to continue to the fourth floor. Eventually, Yoon and the others heard Park's call. They worked together upstairs to pull the father and son up. The underground water was already flooding the survivors standing on the top floor. But when they looked up, they saw that the exit above them was blocked by a building. The building could have fallen on them at any moment. That's when Anju came up with an idea. They could now go and collect something that could float on the water. Then they would not be afraid of being swamped by the rapidly rising water level. But Yoon had a better option. He could use the water storage tank that fell from the apartment above as a life-saving tool. It was a natural submarine. Everyone went into the tank one by one. Finally, Yoon's turn to go inside the tank when he refused to, because there must be a person to stay outside the tank to put the lid on. And he was the one who wanted to be the hero before anyone knew what he was going to do. Yoon was outside the water tank and immediately closed the lid. At this point, the water that was pouring in from all directions began to gradually flood the sinkhole. The building that was stuck above them then fell down and slammed the tank into the water. The water tank was caught in the rope as it rose through the water. Everyone worked together and jumped in the tank at the same time. Finally, they managed to get rid of the rope tangle, but their water tank did not rise for long and was pierced by an exposed metal pipe. Suddenly, a huge amount of water poured into the tank. Everyone was in a state of panic and confusion. That's when the hero Yoon reappeared. This time he was prepared. Yoon was also holding an oxygen tank. He saw that the water tank was punctured and kicked away the trapped water tank outside them. The water tank finally managed to get out of the metal tube's grip, but they have a large hole in the tank needs to be repaired immediately. Otherwise, the tank will soon be filled with water and they will drown in it. In his desperation, Kim threw a punch at the hole. He plugged the broken hole with his arm. Yoon tried to swim up with them, but by now he was too exhausted to continue swimming to the surface. Just at the critical moment, the rope on top of the water tank happened to be wrapped around Yoon's feet. Then he followed the tank and took a ride. The water tank surfaced successfully, but the bottom of the tank has begun to leak water. In a few minutes, the whole tank will be filled with water. Yoon, who had just floated to the surface with the tank, opened the lid from the outside. Finally, the 6 people were rescued. The rescue team also found them. The children finally had a chance to meet their mother. People shed tears of reunion. The film shows the warmth of people helping each other in a desperate situation. You can subscribe and leave comments if you have any ideas. Thanks for watching. See you next time.